I'm going to start with this PowerPoint because some of the people in this class are brand new to lessons with me and maybe don't know some of the history of the dance dating back to ancient matrilineal cultures. So I thought I would just do this little PowerPoint and remind you that this first slide is basically the cover page from my history booklet that you can find on my website. Middle Eastern music and its rhythms are quite varied, but the movements to the music are said to be picturesque and charming. This dancing has left lasting impressions in the minds of those who have seen it, and its charm takes hold of the senses in a most extraordinary way. I want to give you some historical background, and also in other handouts, I provide costume information related to this ancient and enduring art. May you discover the creative, graceful, sensual essence of your spirit. And as my friend Omar once said in one of our many conversations over the years, there is a philosophy behind the dance, which is even more important than the dance technique. The origins of the dance predate recorded history with its roots in the cultures of the countries that are in the region referred to as the Middle East. Practiced to express and explain the mysteries of creation, the movements that form the basics of the dance imitate the act of giving birth as a way of connecting to life force.
Sit Hathor Unet, whose name means daughter of Hathor of Dendera. She was an Egyptian princess, mainly known for her burial treasure trove of jewelry that was found, including her diadem, seen here, hair ornaments, jewelry, and cosmetic objects such as a mirror and vases. And I'm sharing this picture with you because I personally love to wear headdresses, and I think that this diadem is so charming. I couldn't help but share it with you. And here's something I'm especially enamored with, the cowrie shell hip girdle of Sit Hathor Unet. Beginning in prehistoric times, shells were used for adornment and seem to have been fertility symbols. Sit Hathor Unet's cowries are made of thin sheet gold. 7 are hollow and contain metal pellets that jingle. The 8th is cleverly constructed as a sliding clasp. The pellets would have made a soft sound when the wearer walked, or more likely danced. Now you understand my appreciation. Wearing something jingly around our hips when we dance dates clear back to Middle Kingdom Egypt approximately 4,000 years ago. And here we see a figurine of a female. These female figures were often found with burials, especially of the Middle Kingdom, and are now understood as representations of the life-giving female powers of sexual attraction and giving birth, powers from which the dead could derive a new life. As is the case for most figures of this type, the figure wears the hip girdle of cowrie shell-shaped beads and has elaborate tattoos all over her body. The hair is arranged in the so-called hathor style, two thick tresses with curled ends falling forward over the shoulders. Now here we see the Hanur of ancient Egypt. The Hanur was a group of vocalists, chantresses, and singers, and dancers. And in this image from the tomb of Ken-Amun, chief steward of Amenhotep II, dating back to approximately 1400 BCE, we see a procession of women. On the far right, leading the procession, we see two women dressed in an embroidered tight-fitting skirt with a sash across their chest, snapping the fingers of one hand and perhaps slapping their thigh with the other as they sing. Two others wear long skirts, which are decorated in an elaborate way as the short ones, and they are described as the Henner of Hathor, Lady of Revel. They are depicted dancing. So I want to point out to you, when you see an uplifted foot, as you see here, it almost looks like a skip. That denotes dancing. And the women who follow are wearing what is referred to as ordinary dresses, shaking the sistrum and holding the minette. So I believe this was a rather festive celebration. Now here's another favorite of mine, a fragment of a limestone bas-relief depicting female dancers and musicians beating hand drums and clapsticks as part of a funeral procession. As mentioned earlier, this all contributes to a joyous celebration of Hathor at the reception for the reborn deceased. I love the way the figure on the left is depicted drumming and dancing with such abandon that her hair is tossed about, and the woman with drum on the right is swiveling her upper body while dancing on the balls of her feet as she beats her drum. And here we see a couple of dancers with their clapsticks in hand. I am certain that this tradition predates those of us that play finger cymbals now as we dance. Well, I'll conclude this little overview of imagery with this image dating back to approximately 3500 BCE, depicting a female figure with arms raised overhead in a posture of praise, or perhaps invoking blessings. A true masterpiece of Egyptian art, the statue's subject is an enigma. Perhaps it represents a divinity or a mortal woman performing lost rituals. This piece dates back to pre-dynastic Egypt, the period of time starting at the first human settlement and ending at the first dynasty of Egypt around 3100 BCE. This dramatic terracotta figure is one of the Brooklyn Museum's oldest objects, so if you're ever in the vicinity, I do encourage you to look for her.
This style of dance is thought to by scholars to be one of the oldest forms of dance known in civilization. A typical gesture depicted in prehistoric drawings and sculptures is the upraised arm. And by the way, I'm just going to insert my comment here that I have an incredible book called The Civilization of the Goddess by MARIA GIMBUTAS, an archaeologist and anthropologist. And I will send you the title of that book, and also an amazing documentary about her work where she was digging up figurines dating as far back as the 7th millennia BCE and as far back as 25,000 BCE in Central Europe. So her work is really outstanding, and she does a lot of conjecture about the significance of these female figurines found representing the goddess in these ancient cultures. So in the depiction of the upraised arm, it is considered a religious significance, invoking blessings from heaven above. There are drawings and sculptures from antiquity which have been interpreted as a goddess with upraised arms in dancing attitude, considered to be among humankind's oldest expressions of movements. The dance that we practice, that I teach, perform, and love, is known by many names: Middle Eastern dance, dance orientale, or belly dancing. It is believed to have originated in pre-biblical times, and in the ancient but still existing traditions of Middle Eastern countries, girls learn to dance at home and grow up performing for each other's entertainment at gatherings of women. The traditional movements of this historic art reconnect us with the peoples of ancient civilizations who revered the vibrant spirit, the life-giving, life-affirming spirit of the goddess. And it is my intention to assist you in discovering the diversity of these dance traditions and replace misconceptions to reveal an art form celebrating femininity, sensuality, and spirituality. A glance, a smile, a shimmy, a sweep of a crescent hip circle, all express this millennia-old dance honoring the divine feminine. When I began my studies of what is now commonly referred to as belly dance, there was a kind of great debate over what to call this millennia-old tradition of rhythms and movements. The modern term belly dance, brought into the vernacular as part of an advertising campaign in the late 19th century, more about that in a moment, held a somewhat lascivious reputation due to the era in which the term was coined. And again, more about that in a moment. Some of us then resorted to saying we practice the art of Middle Eastern dance. After all, the movements and rhythms were deeply steeped in traditions throughout the region, then referred to as the Middle East, which encompassed the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, Turkey, Egypt, Iran, and Iraq. The term Middle East, also originally coined in the English language, came into widespread use, and Western European nations in the early 20th century used it as a replacement of the term Near East in contrast to the Far East. To be clear, the Near East is the region around the Eastern Mediterranean, encompassing the historical Fertile Crescent, the Levant, Anatolia, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the coastal areas of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, since the late 20th century, so towards the end of the late 20th century, and here we are 25 years into the 21st century, the term Middle East has led to some confusion over its changing definitions and has been criticized as being too Eurocentric. So I have heard geopolitical journalists and economists refer to the region as Western Asia and North Africa. Ultimately, the dance traditions I share span from the Mediterranean basin, which covers 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. At any rate, the renowned director, researcher, choreographer, my beloved friend Morocco, referred to her dance as Morocco and the Kasbah dance experience, showcasing Raqs Sharqi and Raqs Sha'abi. She also published 2 books, a 151-page The Fundamental Movement Vocabulary of Raqs Sharqi and the 414 page answers and advice about Raqs Sharqi and Raqs Shabi, Oriental and folk dance. So FYI, Raqs Sharqi is Arabic that translates to dance of the Orient or Oriental dancing. It's the classical Egyptian cabaret style of belly dance that developed during the first half of the 20th century, while Shabi translates to my people, so dance of the people, Raqs Shabi. It's less elegant per se and more folksy. The movements are earthier than in Raqs Sharqi without so many spins or traveling steps. It could be translated as a folk dance. In her many published articles, and by the way, I highly encourage you to visit her website. Her articles are really rich because she traveled 2 or 3 times a year over the course of like 40 years. She speaks numerous languages and has done in-depth research, going to the folk festival at Marrakesh, for example. And in her many articles expounding on her years of travel throughout North Africa, she reports, one thing was certain, no one from the cultures called it by the misnomer belly dance. Most especially, North Africans and Saudis mentioned a link to childbirth. In fact, in 1976, she published an article titled Belly Dancing and Childbirth. And again, I will share that link with you for you to read if you like. So here we see a depiction as presented at the Temple of Hathor at Dendera of a woman giving birth, situated between 2 goddesses, Hathor and Tausret. There is another tomb of a princess at Saqqara, in which there is a carving showing female dancers performing before the mistress of the tomb, who was seated in a birthing chair, and the hieroglyphs under the carving of the dancer says, "Behold the secrets of birth." Think of her not as herself, but as an Etruscan priestess through whom the spirit of the earth speaks. It's my pleasure to share movements from one of the oldest forms of dance, originating with pre-biblical rites, worshiping motherhood. As my teacher, Morocco, wrote in her article, Belly Dancing and Childbirth, and as Daniela Giuseppe wrote in her book, Earth Dancing, this is a dance of birth and fertility, dating back to ancient cultures, as a preparation of the body for birthing, as well as a dance of life in celebration of the female's magical ability to bring life forth from her womb. Women of all ages, maiden, mother, queen, crone, are invited to partake in the circle, a unique program encouraging and introducing women to drumming and movement practices steeped in antiquity in our common heritage as women. Remember and recreate the ceremony. Now you may be wondering why I went from talking about the birth dance to showing you a picture of the Ferris wheel. But the reason I show you that is because I think we can all relate to the Ferris wheel. And it's one of the phenomenons that came out of the 1893 World's Columbian Exhibition in Chicago. An incredible engineering feat. Those are actually railroad cars. So anybody that was bold enough to get on this contraption, I just really revel in their boldness and their faith in the designer, whose name, by the way, was in fact George Washington Gale Ferris. Stretching for 2 miles along Lake Michigan shore, the fair, quote, lay like a magic carpet spread with the mechanized, electrified wonders of the dawning 20th century. Again, the Ferris wheel, built for the exposition, turned out to be one of the most thrilling wonders of the fair. It was called Queen of the Midway, standing 4 stories higher than the world's tallest building. 2 wheels hung on an axle. Between the wheels were suspended 36 cars the size of trolleys. I said trains, trolleys. And each of those held 60 people each. Oh my gosh. The other big attraction at the Midway was a street in Cairo. So along the Midway was an exhibit called A Street in Cairo. And this is a picture from the brochure publicizing that particular exhibit at the fair. And another tale that I want to tell you about this is that particular exhibit was not very well attended. And so Saul Bloom, who was the marketing director of the fair, sat down at a piano and kind of banged out this tune to put together something that would be something people could hum. And I'm sure you will recognize it. It's this tune. Da 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 da. And then he had some of the dancers from the Midway. So here is a picture of musicians and dancers from the exhibit. Now, in Hubert Bancroft's World Fair catalog, he gives us illustrations of women and men in costume, including a picture of the Oriental danseuse, describing their art and his reaction to it. Now, again, before I go any further, I just want to remind you that as you can see, this is a very modestly dressed woman. There isn't anything evocative as far as I'm concerned, but we have to look at it from the gaze of the Victorian eye. So this is 1893. Women are buttoned up and their dresses have high collars, long sleeves, and their dresses go below their ankles. They are corseted and, as I said, buttoned up. So the fact that this dancer has on a gauze blouse under her vest allowed for a hint of skin to be seen, and that was very provocative for the time. Herbert Bancroft says, dark-eyed Egyptian girls in gauzy garments with great golden ornaments in their headdress and tiny symbols upon their fingers dance in proximity to sharp swords and lighted candles. The semicircular stage is lined with divans, and on either side are richly curtained rooms for the dancers and musicians. End quote. Some of the dance forms seem to have offended the world chronicler's taste. In his tour of the Persian palace, for example, he finds a special hall in which entertainments of a questionable character. But another attitude emerges as his full description of the Algerian performers. The concert hall is a favorite resort, not for its music, but for its dancing girls, who are beauties in their own way, though with strongly marked features and somewhat too plump of outline. Their attire is modest and not without elements of the picturesque. The Algerian dancing girls wear more clothes. Most of them are attired in skirts that reach to the ankle, with loose embroidered waists of silk and bolero jackets, spangled with tinsel ornaments. So at any rate, it seems that the beauty of the dance kind of loosened his tight-laced Victorian view. However, the Victorian view, again, was excitable because these women were wearing gauze blouses. Again, you can see here, it's not that interesting from our 21st century perspective, but if you could see that belly underneath the gauze blouse, you might get excited if you were living during the Victorian age. And one more picture of a dancer from the street of Cairo theater at the exposition. Now, circling back to our talking about the veil, I thought you might find it interesting to know that the dance of the seven veils originated with Oscar Wilde's 1891 play Salome. He was influenced by French writers who had transformed the image of Salome into an incarnation of female lust. And in one of Aubrey Beardsley's illustrations from 1894, related to the play, he drew the picture on the right called the stomach dance, which actually he was referring to belly dance, because that tune that I told you that Sal Bloom composed based on what he heard being played, da 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 da. He then went on to talk about the sensation of the women dancing those movements, manipulating their abdominal region, and people being able to see their quote unquote belly underneath the gauze blouse. So that's how the term belly dance came about. He coined it, belly dance, and put it together with that little tune. So in this illustration of Salome depicted with exposed breast and undulating belly, we see his depiction of belly dance, and she's wearing transparent pantaloons. Oh my. The concept of belly dancing again had become widely known at this point in 1893, thanks to the exposition. And the following year, Beardsley created these designs. Now, again, going back to the veil and a little bit more true historic depictions of it, I wanted to show you this picture of American artist Loie Fuller, who conquered Paris manipulating bamboo sticks with an immense skirt over 100 yards of translucent iridescent silk. And she evoked forms of butterflies, flowers, and flames, and used them with a play of colored lights. And I think you can get the idea now that this could very well have been where the modern day veil dance may have sprung. And here's another image of a dance that was called Dance of the Serpent from an 1892 show of her swirling silks and rainbow lights. And one more picture, again, I think you can get the idea, like she's moving her arms in kind of a figure eight pattern and creating those beautiful swirls with the fabric. And finally, I want to go back again to referencing my dear friend Morocco, who said that she had a conversation with a woman dancer by the name of Samia Gamal, an Egyptian dancer and film actress. And Samia tells the story of King Farouk of Egypt, who hired a Russian dance instructor to teach his daughters to dance. And that woman then taught Samia to improve her carriage and posture by carrying a veil on her arms in her entrance. However, Samia Gamal goes on to explain that the veil was too close to stripping in Egyptian culture, so it never became popular in Egypt beyond her tool of using it to improve her carriage and having elegant fabric draping and floating behind her. Nevertheless, here in the US, as part of the multi-part routines that became popular in the cabaret setting, a section of the dance was devoted to dancing with the veil. So we'll revisit the veil again next week after you've had a chance to let some of tonight's information from the slideshow sink in. And I just want to point out to you that I talked about Samia Gamal and how she used this to improve her posture. So if we bring the veil behind us and just keep the veil uplifted, approximately shoulder level, bring your arms slightly behind your shoulders, and then notice when you walk, look how that just lifts the veil in the breezes that are created by you walking. So just get the feel of that. And then you can bring one arm around and open up, okay? And when you open up, let's put a little turn there. So we're going to walk forward, let it catch some air, and then bring it forward and turn around. So just remember that when you do this movement, you're holding the veil between the thumb and the index finger. And as we're walking forward, so I have a little bit of veil over my index finger and it's secured by the thumb. And then as I walk forward, it catches some air. Then I'm going to bring my hand forward so the thumb is leading forward, and then I flip my hand so the palm is up and the thumb leads to the back. Okay, so you have palm down, thumb leads, palm up, thumb leads. Cross, lift. And again, the idea is you want to catch some air. Now let go. Next time, let go in your left hand as you bring your right hand around. And then take a hold of it with your left hand. Bring your right arm on a diagonal. Let go of the right hand and then slide your hand down and walk into it. I think that's so pretty how the veil kind of hugs your body and creates this beautiful illusion of your exquisite femininity.